Hello, adventurers, and welcome back to the Legend of Kelamentura recap series. Yet again, I forgot to record one after the last session, so you're getting the double bill this time. Episode 56, no, 57, 58, I believe. As he quickly checks YouTube as I rattle on like an idiot who should have checked this before I was deciding to record it. Right, how's everyone keeping? You all been keeping well? Grand, great, wonderful. So the last recap was 55. I believe he says confused. Yes, 55. So we actually have 56, 57, and last session, which was 58. Boy, oh boy, do I spoil you people. All right, so 3 sessions to recap. 3 and a sneaky one-on-one. So let's go all the way back. End of the last recap. What the fuck happened? Yes, end of the last recap. The party was split. I'm saying the Scallybags were split, not the parties. The party. They split the party. The Scallybags were split due to a dubious teleportation of dubious consent. That's probably the best way to describe that. By which Bjorn and Duchess were teleported to Steelborough by Bartholomew, the bard of the party. Because Bart had some stuff he wanted to go off and do by himself in the city, kind of little personal errands, if you will. He was going off doing that, and Dinesco wanted to go off and do some touristy stuff. So Dinesco has gone off and has done touristy things. He went off and had a glorious evening, kind of pretty much like an entire half a day just by himself, out and about doing touristy stuff. Went off and took in the sights, especially the world's biggest cheese, which you'd seen a pamphlet for someone. I thought, well, I gotta go check this out. Seemed interesting. Went in, paid for a VIP package, which kind of got him bumped some. He was able to queue jump, and also was giving him access to a dinner theater that night. But on the way in, he met this quite flamboyant, extravagant, energetic young man called Jonathan Cheesesmith, who was clearly the proprietor of the whole fair and what have you. But after meeting that, paying in, Tedesco was kind of went right in, no messing around, right in for the big money, and beheld the world's biggest cheese, which was quite literally the world's biggest cheese. I think I said it was about 8 foot tall, like a giant cheese wheel. I was like maybe 7-8 foot tall and 20-30 feet in diameter. It's a big hunk of cheese, which he was also able to, as a VIP, was allowed to taste some of it, which, as I described, was a extremely mature cheddar, which very, very tasty. That was part 1 of his experience. Part 2 was the dinner. Well, he then had some time to kill before dinner theater. Went off into an art gallery and kind of was walking around, taking in the sights, enjoying some old paintings, including some that were of historical events, which Dinesco took affront to because they weren't historically accurate, and he would know because he was there. And when questioned by an academic of, well, what's your credentials? What studies have you done to prove that these were different? And he walks over to the painting and points at himself going, that's me, bitch. Then saw a piece called The Fall of the Scaled Tyrant, which is a dramatic Renaissance style for our interpretation. Sort of a dramatic religious Renaissance style piece depicting Tiamat, the Scaled Tyrant, being sealed and bound within the 9 hells, being locked away by the pantheon of the gods, and kind of looming large in the background of the photo, kind of snarling with anger, we see Asmodeus, as the representation of the shadowy evil figure. And as Bartha and Dinesco turned to leave the gallery and go off to his dinner theater, this random tabby cat was sat on a bench and kind of looked at him, cocked its head, and went meow, and then left. But no one else seemed to react to the tabby cat, which is odd. But shrugging that off, went off to the dinner theatre and had a rip-roaring good time. The food itself was not excellent, but decent, but very good. Lots of wine helped. And with all of that, the food was good, but there was this very dramatic, heartfelt piece that sort of told his story, like a biographical piece. It kind of told about his desire to go off and make cheese and forsake his family's legacy of blacksmithing, and his father wouldn't accept him because cheese isn't a man's work. Steel and metal are the true measure of a man, not dairy. But Jonathan cast the family legacy aside and set out on his own to prove that he was, in fact, Gouda enough. And I apologize, not one fucking bit. But meanwhile, while Danesco was off having the cheesy dairy delights, what the hell are we going to cover next? Let's do Duchess and Bjorn. Some trauma. So those two arrived 2 feet in the air above the fountain, the entrance courtyard of Steelborough. Splashed down, quite literally. The splash down, got arrested. But the captain of the guard says, listen, I'm arresting you guys. I know who you are. I remember, because you signed the security book and there's an enchantment on you within Steelborough. I remember you. Listen, I know who you are. I have to arrest you and there's a procedure I have to go through, but don't worry, you're good. I know you're not actually here to rob the place, but can you do me a favor when you get back to whoever it was that teleported you here? Could you have a very stern word, please? Because that's not okay. But that was that. And then Bjorn then asked to where he might find Shiel Stonestep, sort of a former member of the Order of the Cleansing Hand. He lives here now. I'm looking for him. Captain of the guard was like, oh, well, I don't know exactly where his house is, but him or one of his staff might be at one of the taverns. Try the Iron Hearth of the Moldy Toe. So the two head off into the city, go to the Iron Hearth, and while there, Bjorn looks around for the art piece that his old friend Titus painted after the slaying of Ursil, the Draco Bear. A lot of Draco Liches in my game. Anyway, found the painting, took it in for a second, and kind of remembered the people who were all there, and kind of took a slightly reflective moment, realizing that Achilles was in that painting and is now dead. Twin spell powered word kills fun. Anyway, realized that there were a couple of fans of the Scallybags. Kind of young dwarves who were, quite awestruck by Bjorn and Duchess. And a couple of questions for them and all the rest of it, but, kind of this, okay, well, we'll set you, we're here, we're looking for someone, we're looking for Shiel. He might know, he might not be one of his staffs here. Don't worry, we'll help you keep an eye for him. We're fans of what you've done for the town. City. Staff member then came, bought a load of drink, kind of carry-out type thing. Bjorn and Duchess then followed him. Rolled not great stealth because it's a paladin and a cleric. A lot of clank, 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 clank. A lot of pike and Vox Machina vibes. Lots of disadvantage on stealth rolls. Heavy armor's a bitch. But they were aided by the rolling of a natural 1 on a perception check. Fun. But ultimately they were spotted. The guard kind of came to sort of, what are you guys doing? You're kind of following me. What the hell's going on? But was aggressively persuaded to give them admittance to the manor, which he did, brought them to the ground of the manor. They were brought in to the foyer and told to wait. While they were waiting, Shiel's daughter, Lanapez, came down to speak with them. Kind of says this slight brought down. She arrived and she was there with a bunch of guards, with an escort. Basically going, yeah, what does the cleansing hand want with my father? And kind of seeing through the Bjorn and Duchess had tried to kind of like, oh yeah, no, Bjorn had given a fake name and lied terribly. So it's found out in that regard. And while not immediately super aggressive, Lanapez is definitely defensive, and challenging and kind of putting up this prickly front. But through some role playing, some passable roles, the party were able to, the Bjorn and Duchess were kind of able to avoid direct conflict and ultimately able to persuade Lanapez to bring down Shiel Stonestep for questions. And Shiel was brought down and questioned. And Bjorn kind of had to relive some more memories, some more spicy memories from his past at the sight of Shiel. But after some questioning, some back and forth, Shiel kind of relented and said that, well, if you're looking for Brother Abel, I know he's on sabbatical, and I know he was always fond of Tequila Bay, so it might be where he is. I don't know exactly whereabouts, but he'd be there somewhere. Bjorn kind of then says, "Okay, well, I've got what I need." Turned to leave, and then Shield shouted after him. He says, "If you go off and kill him, it's not going to do anything." Kind of almost like almost like fatherly advice, but from a condescending, cocky prick. Which I don't know how it was. We'll see how it was received in the coming times. But after that, the Bjorn and Duchess headed off, and Bjorn in desperate need of de-stressing. Went back to the Iron Hearth, met up with the dwarves they'd found previously, and resolved to go on a bit of a pub crawl, which was all well and good. At which point, Duchess says, I'm going to need some help to carry Bjorn when he gets fucked later on. So sent a message to Bart, who didn't reply. So that's odd. But then sent a message off to Danesco, says, hey, I'm going to need a hand. We're out drinking. He's going to get drunk. And, I'm going to need help carrying him because he's a big guy. Danesco received that and was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I can get there. Not a bother. So, with the messages relayed, we'll go to Bart. Because Bart had received a sneaky message from Wilder. Everything I mentioned in the previous session, previous recap. Got a coded message that basically said, give him instructions on how to access this library that is kind of secret and protected by Angela Wilder and her Finches. So, following the instructions given in the letter, after bamping the party away and heading off by himself, made a bit of a pit stop and bought some rope knives. Bought some rope and some knives and has created 10 daggers and 5-foot lengths of rope, which I don't know what he's going to do with it. I'm excited / nervous to see what he does with those as a dungeon master. As a player, I'm fascinated, but as a dungeon master, I'm like, what evil are you going to wring with those? We shall see. So after securing those and having some practice attempts, which were of questionable nature, which were observed by Ariadne, Ariadne kind of we'll tie the two of these together a little bit, but Ariadne kind of realizing that Bart was doing some sneaky things, healed him for a while successfully, quite successfully actually. Saw him buying the rope and the daggers and going back home and doing his practice attempt, which one of them was really good and other ones not so much. And then Ariadne was able to observe Bart heading off into the Hungover Piglets, which is where their stories diverge, but for now we'll continue with Bartholomew. Entering inside, he followed the instructions given in the letter and was brought down to a cigar room and eventually gained access to the libraries within. At which point, he went searching for family history, his own family history, the Yarrow family, Cannig history there. There's something that he might find in these libraries that, isn't publicly available. And he did. He very much did find out there was some quite detailed history, the proud heritage of the Yarrow name and how they rose to power and prominence. And ultimately found out the origins of how the Yarrow family curse came to be. Family curse, of course, being tieflings, because the Yarrows aren't a tiefling family. They're human. And Bart is a black sheep, as a tiefling, which is, causes some consternation with Bartholomew. Now he kind of knows why he's a tiefling. I was like, interesting. I'm being cagey because I don't know exactly how much the player wants me to reveal. I'm going to let him. I won't let him have the agency to do that, but he knows what information there is. And he can reveal it at his own leisure. And then after that, he went off and did some other research into Asmodeus, because Dinesco had previously made a deal with Asmodeus. Yes, that Asmodeus of the Nine Hells, to revive Duchess after she fell in battle. And kind of looking, going, is there any way to break a deal with Asmodeus? Did a bit of research into him, and kind of a lot of it was very factual and dry and religious in nature, and kind of factual mixed with fiction. That sort of a hysterical nature of Asmodeus and all the rest of it. But actually found some research notes in the book, which basically said that no one has found a way to break a deal with Asmodeus. But there's also something alluding to the fact that Asmodeus might be something about Asmodeus in the Hells and the gods are somehow involved with Asmodeus in the Hells, and need to ask them. So Bart has now gone. Bart has answers. Questions have been answered, but now has more questions. So ultimately, with his curiosity satisfied like a fat cat, Bart he left the secret libraries, went to the exit, which resulted in him being teleported to a random spot in the city. And then when he was making his way home, he was ambushed, struck in the back of the head, rendered unconscious, and woke up bound, gagged, and secured to a chair with preparations that had been made specifically against spellcasting. His hands were tied, his fingers were spread and held in place so he couldn't do verbal somatic stuff for spellcasting, which was some concern. He was like, this is an interesting predicament I find myself in. What the fuck is going on? But managed to roll decently, roll enough of a charisma check to kind of fake that he couldn't speak with the gag in, frustrating his interrogator, who removed the gag and was in the process of placing an arcane collar on Bart, who took that brief instant to use subtle spell and polymorph into a sperm whale in a 10 by 20 foot room, which turned two people in that room, two kind of assistants, if you will, into some sort of a jam or a preserve or a conserve. I'm not quite sure. Just instantly killed two people and rendered the master, this interrogator, rendered them unconscious and buried them in a brick wall. Bart then got a little bit angry, had some questions of his own for the master, who revealed that this was a training exercise, and Bart was like, what the fuck do you mean it's a training exercise? At which point, a bunch of people charged into the room and kind of like, whoa, that's fine, yes, this is a training exercise, this was a kind of an assessment of you and how you cope under pressure and try to find how you respond to these situations, and we think you've got a good handle on it, so yay, but we need to learn, this is a teaching moment for us, really fucking sorry. And the man in charge of that was a half an elven gentleman by the name of Henderson, who was kind of quietly crapping himself at the powers on display, realizing that Bartholomew's not to be trifled with. Bart was led out of this facility, and along the way, Bart kind of said that, I don't want any healing from you guys or any healing potions. Give me money to buy healing potions. And the player said Supreme, and the Dungeon Master went, oh, I know those are Supreme potions, they're very expensive. And Bart was given a shit ton of money to go off and buy a bunch of Supreme healing potions, which are a step above Superior healing potions. The party now was 24,000 platinum in hush money, if you will, from this Agent of the Finches. And also, Bart also knows that Wilder is not directly involved in that aspect of the Finches. Yes, Wilder is involved in the Finches. She's the head of the organization, but she also sits on the council. It's like the Mistress of Whispers. But the person in charge was a man by the name of Caleb with a K. That's only information he knows, which kind of de-escalated Bart enough to the point where he's not going to go and kick down the council's doors and ask for Wilder's head. Wilder might be doing that to Caleb in the morning. We'll have to wait and see. But after being alleviated from his shackles, while he was alleviated from his shackles, Bart had actually received the message from Wilder, Duchess, that had been sent in Steelborough. The head, I'm going to need help to pick Bjorn up. Bart replied, going, yeah, I may need some help too. I'm kind of bound and gagged in a dungeon somewhere. Don't know what's going on. Which then kind of caused the party. Duchess was like, well, shit, we need to go. So cue Bjorn and Duchess doing a hell of a leather dash on Pegasus' back using lots of haste spells and the dash action to do what would have been like a casual 2-hour journey in like 30 minutes. Like, oh yeah, our friend is in trouble. Let's travel stupidly. I don't have a distance in my head, but yeah, if you're on foot, that takes you like 6 hours. I said flying, you can go in 2-ish because you're flying over the mountains. Yeah, they just took the option 3. They took the Skyrim player option of like, nah, fuck that. And they were running back to the city, hell for leather. But they all managed to reconvene sometime later, with Bart leaving the facility with his chest of money. Met up with Ariadne and Danesco in the city streets, and Bjorn and Duchess arriving at Kelamentura, and Bjorn using locate object on the necklaces to kind of track down where Bart was because he's in trouble. Flies down, swoops in, lands, ready to raise hell, and sees Bart, who is beaten and bloodied, Ariadne, who's sat there looking guilty, and Danesco, who's looking a little bit tipsy and wearing a cheese hat. Blink, blink. But back to Ariadne. Because while that was going on with Bartholomew, after Bart had entered the tavern, Ariadne kind of sat outside and was like, I'm going to be content to sit here and spy on my friend. This feels like a fun little side quest. Was kind of sat doing as I said, Ariadne is the one who invented the spy and the man on a bench with a newspaper stereotype from spy novels. Only she sat with a scroll. So, while she was waiting for Bartholomew, this white tabaxi was walking down the thoroughfare, looking very hurried and rushed, like someone who was going to work and was late. Mild panic. Ran down the thoroughfare, and at one point, Ariadne and this tabaxi locked eyes, made eye contact. The tabaxi was like, the panic cleared, there's a flash of recognition, and then a moment of, oh shit, I know who that is. And the tabaxi kind of paused, looked at Ariadne, and went, and then ran off. Curiously and spiked with curiosity, Ariadne deigned to follow, but did so on the rooftops, as to remain hidden. Was able to follow stealthily for not too terribly far as the tabaxi went in search of some guards. I had a kind of a quick, fraught conversation with the guards, who initially seemed a bit pissed off that, this civilian has come up to them and, oh, what do you mean I can't just lean on my spear all day? Ugh, I have to do some work. With whatever the tabaxi spoke to them about, the guards became interested, took notes, thanked the tabaxi, and then the other guards started to bark orders at the other one, and the two then began to search, and Ariadne went, they're probably looking for me, I should go. Rolling that one in her stealth check. So, roof tile shattered on the ground, guards like, oh, you come here. Ariadne didn't really resist too much, but kind of resisted with attitude, shall we say. Kind of huffing and, okay, fine, I'll go. Came down to the guards who were like, yeah, we've got some questions to ask you. You're a tabaxi friend. There's a certain that we've reason to question you. There's an investigation you might be able to help us with. Ariadne trying to lie about, oh no, I was just out looking for my cat and da-da-da. And the guard's like, oh, you mean the white tabaxi? Yeah, right, come on. So brought down to the police station. Brought into an interrogation room. And while trying to put on the big kawaii anime eyes and be all cutesy and like, oh, be officer, I wouldn't hurt a fly, was chinned to the desk. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Enter Police Captain Theoden, Captain of the Guard Theoden, kind of an inquisitor, if you will, who interrogated Ariadne, and with the evidence that he had brought forth, began to question Ariadne about what brought her to the city in the first place. And, oh, you're part of the Anvari, you're part of the dance troops then, are you? Yeah, did you perform this at a function for this individual, for Lord Glenfiddich? I did, yes. And while you were there, can you describe what happened on the night? And and then Ariadne said, yeah, we went off and danced and performed, and then we left and went back to camp, and it was all well and good. And the captain was like, oh, so you didn't leave the party then at any point? You didn't head off into other parts of the manor you shouldn't have been? And under this relatively light pressure, Ariadne's resolve cracked like fresh ice. She just, with this tidal wave of word vomit of guilt. And admitted that, yes, she went off and while she was at the party, there was a creepy old guy came up to her and was like, oh, you're very skillful, you're very good, but I wonder if you could go and steal a thing for me. And Ariadne was like, oh, well, I don't know if I could go for steal a thing, but you know what, fine, I'm going to go prove it. Went off, found the thing, and was like, well, it was, in my defense, it wasn't very well secured. It was in his office. It was on the desk. It wasn't that well hidden. I just found it, brought it back to the guy. He was very pleased, and he left, and I never saw him again. And I then headed off with the rest of my troop. And here I am now, after some other bits and pieces in the meantime. Again, the captain, taken aback by the apparent ease of this confession, was like, well, that makes my life easy. Yeah, you just admitted to stealing documents which are highly classified and very, very important. Well, that's a treason charge. Good luck in prison. At which point he was interrupted by Angela Wilder, who clearly is keeping tabs on investigations. And when this tidbit popped up, she popped in, quite literally, to the police station, told the guards to get the fuck out, leave all their notes on the table, spoke with Ariadne and says, yeah, those plans that you stole, they were blueprints for an embassy. They were blueprints for the council embassy overseas. And, well, the person who you gave them to, I've reason to believe that is an information dealer known as the Eye. I've dealt with him in the past myself. I know what he's about. So you've given state secrets to an international information dealer, and I don't know what who the buyer is. So you could stay here and go to jail for treason, which, that ain't gonna be a light sentence, or you can go overseas to Pangaea, to Tequila Bay. You can track down this man known as the Eye, or find out the buyer, find out what the fuck is going on, and you can do damage control. Okay? Sound good? Good talk. Basically, you go overseas, fix your mess, and then come back. And Ariadne was like, oh, okay, will do. And left. And after the interrogation, kind of just tootled around the city, kind of like a lost lamb. Sorry, Julie. But yeah, went off. And ultimately everyone met back up again, and the party kind of all talked and swapped stories about their day and what had all happened and everything that transpired. And yeah, that's kind of where things ended up at the party, and this drunken discussion and debates about what do we do with all this money, and what do we do with all this money, and what do we do next, and we could buy a hell of a lot of nice things with all this money, and talked about trauma and stuff. And maybe we should go to Tequila Bay. We've now 2 reasons. The party now collectively has at least 2 reasons to go to Tequila Bay. So we'll see where they end up in the next few sessions. They have a lot of money, and I think at one point an airship was mentioned, and I went off and looked it up in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The airships are 20,000 gold. Now that'd be a nice way to undo the overly generous dungeon master. But we'll see what they come up with. But that'll be the next time, guys. That's half an hour. We rambled on. If you stayed to the end, thank you very much. And if you have stayed to the end, just for the crack, comment Displacer Beast. Take that in the comments. I know you've stayed to the end. But thank you very much for watching / listening, adventurers. And I will see you all next time. Till then, see you guys.